Hey guys, welcome to the Port Report. We're in for a big one this week. Port Adelaide are heading to the home of the football MCG to take on one of our biggest rivals, Collingwood. So let's have a quick look at Collingwood and some of the big stories heading into this week. Right, the Pies took on Giants on the weekend, and it's fair to say they were pretty well beaten, losing by 50 plus points. Just from the eye test, they look like Giants outworked them most of the game. Their disposal was pretty below their usual standard, and especially their inside 50s, which I thought is probably a real area of weakness. If they could replicate that this week against Port, that we can really expose. So when you look at the stats in general, they're actually pretty even with Giants in most of the categories. You know, disposal efficiency was much lower. They had more turnovers, and probably the big one is the hit outs. So Collingwood had a big advantage when Kieran Briggs went out of the game, and they doubled their hit outs, but only just beat the Giants in clearances. So pretty key stat when you think about how much first delivery they could have had via Cameron. Right, some of the positives I did take out of that Collingwood game, probably Darcy Cameron was best on for Collingwood. He did ruck against Lockie Keefe all day, but he definitely had plenty of the footy. He's pretty important for them behind the ball and up forward as well. So he does push back and take a mark like Max Gorn, but he also can be a threat up forward. So big ask for Jordan Sweet this week. Definitely a key area we need to make sure we get on top of. Josh Dacos was impressive down back, so he looked like he's in a new halfback role for the time being. I do think they might be tempted to put him back to a wing now that Dan Houston's back, and use him as a link with Houston to get the Pies in the forward line, so watch his space. But if he does play down back, he definitely is pretty dangerous by foot. I thought Jeremy Howe was not too bad in defence as well. He's a great intercept marker, something that Port probably got caught out with a few times in the past by kicking it long to Collingwood. Him and Moore seemed to make us pay every time we did that. All right, let's think about some of the weaknesses and some of the areas where Port could really expose Collingwood. I think Collingwood's ball use in general was pretty sloppy, but that's round zero, so we can't read too much into it. I think the way they entered the forward line and their forward line in general is something that we could probably use as an area to try and beat them this weekend. So they've always had a bit of a makeshift forward line with a few stars. So they've got Bobby Hugh up there, who's obviously one of the best small forwards in the game. Jamie Elliott's quite good. He kicked 2 goals on the weekend. But other than that, they've got Myercheck, Mick Stay. They had Tim Membry up there. They've got Lockie Schultz. And most of them had a pretty poor showing. Half of it was probably their form and half of it was probably how they entered the forward line. So they did bomb it in and have that messy kick, which is not the Collingwood that we're all used to seeing for the last few years. So I'm really interested to see what will happen if they enter the forward line again like that this year. All right, let's think about some of the big topics heading into this week. Probably the biggest one that comes to mind is Dan Houston. So he will be making his Collingwood debut against us, which is pretty ironic. Love him, absolute legend of the club for the time that he was there. 150 games plus 2 All-Australians, very much loved. So it does really pain to see him pull a Collingwood Guernsey on this weekend. But, you know, I did mention in the last video that we did capitalise really well from that trade. So we bring in a few players that we're going to see in Saturday's game. And overall, yeah, that's football for you. Houston is a real weapon. He's going to make a difference for Collingwood. We just need to make sure that we're accountable for him. So whether we try and put a Pau Pepper or a Rioli or someone of the likes that will make Dan Houston accountable so he can't just stroll out of the MCG on the back line and set up all the plays for Collingwood. One of my favourite stories this week, and I'm just really fingers crossed, is Jeremy Finlayson. I really hope he can do what he did against St Kilda and be that answer for us as a rebounding general defender. So he was ultra impressive in that game. Read into it as you will. I choose to read into it as an optimistic view. So he had 30 disposals, 13 intercepts. His kicking was so good. If Collingwood choose to enter the forward line like that again on the weekend, they're going to have a real tough time with Finlayson. It also really frees up Alia to be a second defender and really hurt teams with his intercept marking. So I'm optimistic. Rory Lobb and the Bulldogs did it. I don't know why we can't do it either. So yeah, this is a big watch for me because a big Finlayson showing and a victory against Collingwood in round 1 I think the world's our oyster after that. One of the final stories that's really exciting for me is the Joe Show. So we've got Joe Richards playing for Port for the first time against his old team, and then we've got Joe Berry, the recruit, who I think we're about 99% sure he's playing. Kenny was a bit tight-lipped about this in his press conference. This is what he had to say.
We've been pretty open all the way through with what we expect. We've played most of the players that we expect to be amongst the mix. There'll be some new people, but we won't confirm any of that right here, right now.
What have you liked about Joe Berry?
Lots.
Yeah, so take it as you will. But I'm fairly confident Joe Berry's going to play. So, you've got two absolute great users of footy and great runners as well. So I want to see them pushing up and down the wings on the MCG and really outwork Collingwood. Let's see if there's someone that will match them. And let's see if Collingwood can last 4 quarters with 2 really good ball users running both ways and pushing high. So I'm really excited about that. I love it when we get new players, especially decent players that can change our team. Overall, I'm really optimistic. All right, guys, thank you for tuning into the Port Report. As all Port supporters, we're nervous, but we should be optimistic until this first game gets under our belt. I'm really hoping Port come out, show what we're about this year, prove the critics wrong, and start with a great victory. Thank you.